Directorpiece Theater. I'm pretty sure I'm being held hostage by two demons named Abe and Adam.
An official intro, or do you want to just...
I don't know. Is this even an official movie? I'm not even sure. You know what I mean? If it... I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't either. I don't know what an official intro for this show even means, because we have the prognosticator at the front end who's constantly running bits. So, like, this show could run any which way, and who would know the difference? I would not.
We're wild cards, dude. Like Ace Ventura. Oh, it's perfect.
What a segue. What a heroic segue.
No,
you hated it?
I'm not putting that in. You don't know what I'm going to do.
I don't know either. I mean, most of our intros are basically improv garbage, and then we, like, Frankenstein them together.
We just kind of chill out here.
Sure.
I actually just put my hand around my waist like I was going to, like, impress you with my nonchalance. Like, hey, what's up?
That would have impressed me. How many of these episodes have you recorded in a smoking jacket? Because if the answer is 0, you've been fucking up.
No, I'm in my smoking jacket right now. What the fuck are you talking
exactly.
about?
Thank you. Exactly. This is the one show that I've ever done or listened to that makes me think maybe pipe smoking is a way I could be.
Yeah.
maybe a guy with a pipe is a guy I could be. I don't know.
Dude, when you got into film school, did you think you were like a big fucking deal?
Remember all the hats I used to wear? Of course I did.
Oh my god, you were the hat guy. Of course, the hat king, Adam Ganser.
I was the king of hats.
As we all knew.
The king of them. Yeah. King of hats. I also had the black rim glasses.
I remember I had such a fucking chip on my shoulder. Like I was king shit. I was like, look at me.
I remember you having like patterned shirts and stuff in film school.
I still have patterned shirts. I don't think my wardrobe has changed since I went to film school. Think about it.
You wear a lot of polo shirts unbuttoned with like an undershirt. That's true. Like your vibe. That's your vibe.
That's my vibe.
Which I like.
I'm like milk toast white guy vibe.
I see, but like it's funny because like the classic version of that actually is Ace Ventura. Mm-hmm. Ace Ventura is the classic like unbuttoned shirt, but you've never struck me as being like doing a thing with it. It's more just like this is casual. This is cashy.
See, my thought is that if I'm unbecoming, and I don't seem like I'm up to anything in particular, I just blend into the walls, you'll never know when I'll attack.
Right. It's definitely, you've always been trying to take the world by surprise.
Yeah.
Which I respect.
Yeah, just like choke you out, just as we slowly go to the ground together. Yeah. I'm a fucking maniac, man. I'm a maniac in my polo shirts.
Half vampire. Yeah, like most of your attacks have been half vampire.
And then I feast. Yes.
Yeah, I definitely had a thing. But to be fair, I didn't create the thing for film school. Like I created it for a whole different reason several years before, and then it just happened to translate perfectly to douchebag. Oh yeah. You were. Director.
I could tell that was like a well-worn and trodden like vibe you had. I was
sure.
Like, you were pulling it off because you had the confidence of it. Someone who like arrives in like a suit and they haven't worn a suit like forever. You can tell. You can tell. It's like I don't know.
Use
if I'm
an
a
iron,
suit
motherfucker.
Person.
Yeah, use an iron.
And then you start second guessing all your questions like, are my teeth too big? Are my teeth too big? Are my eyes coming out of my skull? Yeah.
If somebody was able to run a sound cable from the minds of film students, it would be a cacophony of anxiety.
Oh, it's
just a one long continuous scream.
All the egos alone is one thing, but it's deeper than that. I think it's deeper than ego. Ego meaning specifically that part in all of ourselves that says like, all these people, but I'm the real director.
But me though. Yeah.
Me though. It's just a bunch of people doing that. That's all film school
as
really
as we've said a bunch of times, or maybe we haven't said it on the podcast, but it's like a beautiful anecdote. The first day of film school, they get you in this room and they're like, first of all, they say congratulations, the hard part's over, which is a obnoxious, right? And then the second thing they do is like, now how many of you are the youngest child in your family?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like everybody's hands go up, and you're like, oh,
and they're like, yeah,
right.
it's a little. I've had that trick done to me more than one time in classes, and it's like I remember hearing that and going like, yeah, old hat. It's why are you doing this, man? Do you think you're doing a magic show? Like what do you think you're doing with your film school here? Like
you reject the learning.
We all raise our hands and go, oh, there's something psychologically about being a baby or something like that, and then you go, yeah, of course, that makes a lot of sense. That younger child wants attention, and they usually become creative or become funny. Yeah, it's well known.
It is well known, and yet for me, a person who never even considered that, walking into film school as an eldest child, that was like, oh yeah, oh, I see now what happened.
Yeah,
I am weird here. Like I am a weird guy here, and that has remained true to this very day.
You know what my favorite, my favorite part of film school was in that meeting? It was when they said, "Look to your left, look to your right." Half of you are going to work on the web. The other half won't have a job. And then there's also Ryan Coogler. Remember that part of film school?
Oh my god.
Throwing him right under the bus.
Wow, that's a lot of darkness.
It's a lot of darkness, my man.
It really is. I will say, I enjoy reminiscing about this because then it makes you think, oh yeah, we're going to cover Ace Ventura as a legitimate movie today. Mm-hmm. And like, Ace Ventura is a movie in 2008 when I went to film school that I'd have been like, oh, what a garbage heap of garbage. What a garbage made of garbage film it is. Like, yeah. I can't even. Let me spit for a while just to get the taste out, right? And now, as an older man, having worked some as a director and looking forward to returning to that chair, I kind of have some respect for this.
Yeah, man.
Did you feel the same way when you watched it?
Yeah. I mean, I can't. Yeah. I mean, like I'm glad you mentioned that because that has happened to me over numerous films. In numerous decades. I've even gotten old enough, I guess, as to keep your, what you're saying true, which I believe in. That is like, it is since dispelled. There's just different movies. There's no good movies. There's movies that work on you and movies that are well thought out and have really impassioned thinking behind them. And there's movies that have, and it's a sliding scale. It's not even a binary system. So whatever, man. If let's say you're in film school and you say, oh yeah, Braveheart, that was, that has some merit, that's going good. Oh, you like Braveheart? Yeah, I guess, it was instrumental in 1994 and I was like 9. And he's like, yeah, last time I liked Braveheart, I was 9. It's just like, okay, well, you can fuck right off then. It's like, there's gonna be a lot of people throughout your life saying that your tastes are, in fact, bullshit tastes. And to those people, I say, go fuck yourself.
I mean, that's definitely one of the impetuses of this podcast is the idea that I think when you're in your early 20s, like you spend you're trying to like collect an identity a little bit out of pop culture.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? Like it's like, oh, I know all the good, like I know every Tom Waits song. Mm-hmm. What are you listening to? Britney Spears? Fuck you. Yeah. Right? But like then you get a little older and you've had enough dumb chats about this with your friends who are also pretentious. And you're like, oh, this has not in any way really shaped who I am. Like really, I've been shaped by a much different factors, many of which were out of my control. Mm-hmm. And this is just a way I passed the time and chose to I made a club out of this, and that club is dumb if not everybody can join in.
Fandom and the reverse of fandom, which I guess is hate-dom, hate-dom. Yeah, hate-dom. Our gatekeepers in general, like sometimes they have legitimate points, like this film is problematic or something like that, and that is valid. That's
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's multiple things can be true.
Yes, that's right. Multiple things can be true. Also, I think it's important to look back on things that you liked, but then later on judged, and ask yourself which you was the right you. Could they both be you? or like is there some third compromise between the two? Because that's where I am with Ace Ventura. Like,
yeah, in a way, Ace Ventura is a man, but he's also a pet detective.
What an apt metaphor. Thank you, Abe.
Thank you.
No, so okay, but you can admit that at some point in the mid 2000s, this movie was like an untouchable, right? Like it was like one of the worst movies according to people who had a taste. Right?
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's how people felt.
And to this day, there's some people who are anti Ace Ventura, and that's fine. You know,
well, see, sure. And I'm not here to argue that it's cinema. You know what I mean? Like in the it's not high art. But I will say I stumbled across it on Netflix like, I don't know, 3 months ago. And hey, man, we're all in a cage. So like I'm watching things on Netflix I wouldn't normally watch. And I was surprised to find that I was able to enjoy it again. In fact,
there's stuff you could pull from it. I love that. That's my favorite, one of my favorite interactions with films. Kind of the second viewing, not that I learned more, but that I like appreciate some aspects of it that I didn't because I was like looking at this one thing. Yeah, it's kind of a fun experiment.
There's that, and also there's like sometimes you spent enough time away that you can laugh at it again.
Sure.
Like in Ace Ventura's case, it had been so long, like probably 20 years since I'd watched it.
God, yeah.
Maybe more. You know, like I might not have watched it in this millennium. It's totally possible I haven't watched it since the 90s. That like I was able to like laugh at it again in a fresh way. Mm-hmm. And that is fun too. But now as a filmmaker, one thing really popped out to me about this film, and that is that this is not an easy movie to direct. This is a hard movie to direct because Ace Ventura is a completely impossible character, like completely impossible and uniquely impossible, right? Like we haven't seen a lot of characters in cinema doing what he's doing. And so the director's task is to make that feel like it still works in a movie. And that's not that simple.
Right.
So as I mentioned to you, and I know you've seen this pitch, but the audience has not, one of the things that really stood out to me and I thought was a cool topic to discuss is the fact that Ace Ventura is a success as a film because of some very smart and careful casting by the director so that it was able to counterbalance the performance of Jim Carrey as Ace Ventura. And so in a way, the director's casting saved the movie from Ace Ventura. In some ways,
yeah.
You know what I mean.
Well, it's a challenge, and like,
it's a huge
challenge. They had to adjust what a movie like how you cast it. I see. I kind of think I see what you're saying.
Yes, I'm gonna say it in several different ways throughout this episode.
Great.
But like, but just the log line for everybody so that they know what they're in for. So this is an episode about how casting all the characters that surround Ace Ventura make us able to accept Ace Ventura as a character and therefore make the movie work. That's the idea.
Right.
So let's talk a little. Yeah, cool. So let's talk a little bit about casting, just sort of what it is and what people think it is. Often when I do one of these episodes, I think like, well, what do people who don't make movies think casting is or think lenses are or whatever?
Right.
And I kind of came to what I think people's impressions of casting are mostly based on two situations. The first is the idea of attaching somebody to a project, you know, like the Deadline reports or the Hollywood Reporter reports. And that's when an actor, usually a big name, agrees to be in a movie for a big sum of money, and that helps the movie to get made. So that might happen in the early stages before the movie's been greenlit, or it might be a project that's been greenlit and they're waiting till they get everything together, and then finally, oh, Brad Pitt's going to play, you know, insert famous Marvel character. Now we're really doing something, and the movie goes into production.
Yeah, it's kind of one or the other. It's, you know, a vehicle or a, you know, like, oh, we got him. We got we got her. You know, she's going to make the movie even better now, and now we get more money because of that. Yeah.
It's almost like there's almost kind of a role-playing game or like a card game to it where it's like, oh, now I got Chris Evans. Now I have a good hand. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the idea of casting for like big stars. And so that's one way attaching happens. But there's a second way that I think also people are aware of. And that is occasionally a movie that's like an indie movie will get a hold of a big star and get them attached, and then the movie will be able to get money. So like a good example of that is Whiplash. So the movie Whiplash was made based on the strength of a short film, and the short film was like some kid sent a script to J.K. Simmons, who played Fletcher and then later won an Academy Award for the part. And J.K. Simmons, a known actor, was like, I like this. I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to invest the time and energy for little or no money. And because of that, the movie got elevated to a place where it came into being. So that's another kind of attaching that we would think of for scripting, for casting, right? And I think most people know that, don't you?
I'd say people are usually able to decipher, especially after the fact, how that all three mechanizations work.
Yeah. So the second way that casting tends to work, I think that people are aware of, is auditioning, right? They think of a process of like a cattle call full of people who can go into a room and they've read some piece of the script and they have to show up, do the script in a way that impresses the filmmakers, right? This is the room where the magic happens. And I mean, you and I have done plenty of casting many, many times, and that isn't inaccurate, right? Like that is what happens.
Yeah.
You know, they show up, they memorize a part, they give their best shot at it. We like it or don't, and then we give them an adjustment, and then they show us that they can be flexible. Yeah. And then we decide. Or sometimes
you need to be flexible as their director.
Yes, that's correct. I can think of some parts for Crack that we did that actually, where it was like that person came in with something so cool that the part had to change.
Yeah.
Sometimes auditioning will be like on bigger movies, it will include things like screen tests, right? Where so like the most famous example of this is Al Pacino had to do like I don't know how many screen tests because the parent for The Godfather, because the parent company didn't believe in him. He was an unknown actor at the time. And so you have all these screen tests of like very famous actors like Martin Sheen and Christopher Walken, I think. Maybe not him. Maybe that's a parody, but a bunch of very famous actors trying out for the part of Michael Corleone because it's basically like a high-level audition. That's what screen tests are, right? Audition for Suits. Like that's the whole idea. And I think people are generally aware of that, right? So that's what most people think casting is. And you'll notice that both of those types of casting are essentially star-centric, right? They focus on what does it take to become a lead in Hollywood? What's it take to be a star? You know, they follow the narrative of either a star that's born or a star that already exists, right? And so they don't in any way really capture what casting is for bit parts or for supporting parts. And because of that, I think that we don't have a broad sense of what casting actually is for, right? Like obviously, it's like, well, you got to get the people to say the lines of the movie. Yes, but what else is casting for? And the theory that I'm going to sort of explain to all of you is casting is not just about selling movie tickets, although that's what lead actors are for, and not just about excellent performances, although it is for that. It's also to create a premise or hook of the movie. It's to sell that premise or hook of the movie and to create a consistent movie universe. The people that you populate all these small roles with actually will give you a sense of how the world in this movie works, more than the lead will. And so
I think that's more visible in comedy specifically.
Yes.
Because comedy is where, premise, really sinks its teeth into the reason for why this scene is happening or why this bit is happening. And also the consistent movie universe, which I think is very valid and important, especially in a movie like this, where it's like wacky. You know, it's like, how do you dial in the wackiness, right?
Yes. Right. And that's fundamentally what we're going to be talking about today is sort of like, how do you get Ace Ventura to work? And the answer to that is casting carefully all the supporting characters. So we're going to talk about how each of the supporting characters...
And not Jim Carrey, who's...
not Jim Carrey. And I'm going to say a few things about Jim Carrey, but... Yeah.
You're gonna paint us a Jim Carrey shaped hole, is what you're gonna do.
That's exactly what I'm. Yes, no, you're right. That's a perfect metaphor. That's exactly what it is.
Love it.
Okay, so Now, look, Ace Ventura was not always a Jim Carrey vehicle. That was the first and most stunning thing that I've read on the internet.
When you researched that he wasn't like, we gotta get the Carrey, baby.
No, I could not believe it because it's such a...
It was his first thing. It was his breakout thing.
It was his huge... Right. He was kind of known because of Mad TV, but like, it was his... It launched him
not Mad
into...
TV, Living Color.
Excuse me, in Living Color. That's correct. In Living Color. He was launched into the stratosphere from Ace Ventura.
God. Yeah.
Like instant star.
In a year.
Right. It's instantly. And like within 3 years, he'd made like 5 huge movies. Like he'd made so many. So what you have to, like, what people need to remember is once upon a time, there was a script called Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, and Jim Carrey was not attached to it. Here are some people who were considered before Jim Carrey for this movie.
Lay it on me, baby.
Yeah, here we go, baby. Here we go. The role was offered to Rick Moranis, who turned it down.
Rick Moranis. What?
Rick Moranis, Pet Detective.
He would have been a completely different... Oh, my God.
Yeah, totally different vibe, right? Like,
that
it's a lot more
like
sad sack.
Clean Slate, like... You ever see Clean Slate?
I haven't. No. But I get the
That's
vibe
Dana
already.
Carvey. Yeah, it would have to be more internal and like... I don't know. If you've seen Strange Brew, they're all like game-based instead of this, which is like... So... I guess one thing I wanted to bring to the table at this point, it was like the stylings of like what Jim Carrey could be, because before we start talking about everyone else, he's so big and loud and like he's Robin Williams-esque, right?
I guess if you're gonna put him as a type, Robin Williams is the best type.
Which is like it's the idea of like the self-completing bit. He's the whole package. He's gonna run and do his own thing. Correct. And when it's done, you'll know there's nothing to be added to. In a lot of ways, it's like he's a one-man improv show. Yes. And he's usually character and like bit based, which is like a very Groundlings improv style. It's where it's character based is like very Groundlings. A lot of people know this, like, but this is kind of inside baseball, just the idea of like those schools like Groundlings versus like UCB or iOS or, you know, something else, Second City, like the very concept is like, okay, it's all about you and what like performances, what impressions you can do, et cetera, versus what's the game, you know, which is very much Second City, which is very much, you know, a lot of Canadian comedians during, you know, the 80s and 90s, where it's like, well, what's funny? Well, it's the conceit, the thought that this is reality, you know, and then us bouncing back and forth about that reality. And it's just very interesting how they could have gone. Rick Moranis is not someone who you get when you're
Absolutely
like,
not.
let's do like just a wall to wall, just like, let's just watch him, you know, like it changes the movie entirely.
It also would have been a much safer choice because he had a box office given. He was a given for the box. Like everybody knew who he was, and he was already the star of some things. You could see it. I just want to say on the subject of different comedy improv centers, stylings. They're another way for people who have no idea what we're talking about to think of this is they're almost like schools from Hogwarts, right? Like they're almost like Slytherin, and they're like Slytherin, and they're like you know, Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff. Mm-hmm. They all have certain emphases. About what makes a potent comedian, you know, what cocktail of personality traits and beliefs make an interesting comedian. And Jim Carrey comes out of the tradition that's very character based and that enjoys sort of very big theatrical trappings.
Slytherin?
Well, Slytherin, believe it or not, is one of the other people that this part was offered to, and that is Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman. Yep.
No, hold on. I'm sitting down and I need to sit down. Holy fuck, did you just throw Alan Rickman?
Rickman.
No.
Alan Rickman.
No.
Yep. I was so thrilled. I was so thrilled to read it, Abe. I couldn't believe it. It just tickled my heart. Okay.
Alrighty then,
can spend
Potter. Jesus. Jesus. Imagine that madness. Oh my God. What would he do? Like what? How? What is that script?
Righty then.
Oh, like a glove. What?
Oh, shit. Louis
Good
Einhorn
Lord. What?
is a man.
I don't believe this is reality. I'm still sleeping. That is insane.
Unbelievable.
That
I know.
is insane.
So there's that. Here's some other people. You're not going to believe them either. Judd Nelson. That's like what kind of angst-ridden pet detective is this? Judd Nelson, and then Whoopi Goldberg was considered for this part.
See, that I'd watch.
Oh yeah, Whoopi.
Oh yeah,
that sounds
dude.
amazing.
Hot
Sounds
off
amazing.
Ghost. You saw her as a medium for ghosts. Now a medium for animals.
No, Whoopi pet. You saw her as Sister Act. Now imagine her.
Wasn't she in the
Miami-based.
T-Rex film?
After that. But
After that, so that's when she was like, should have done it. Should have done it.
I don't think Whoopi has a lot of regrets. I don't think she has a lot of regrets.
Yeah, I think she's fine.
So all this happened before Jim Carrey's on board. Okay, so understand.
What the fuck? How did they make movies?
I don't, dude. Every time you read these stories, you're like, what? Like, what the fuck? How did they do this?
It's just got. Oh man.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
I don't even fucking
It's totally
know.
unbelievable. So look. Once they settled on Jim Carrey, of course, the script had to be pretty dramatically rewritten. And specifically what they decided is that he is going to do a lot of the rewrites and he's going to basically improv jokes throughout. And you can feel that, right? Like
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. They're like, all right, well, our faith is in you. We're casting you. We love what you're bringing to the table.
Right.
Put it in there.
Well, and you can imagine how if he showed up with anything like the character that exists in Ace Ventura, like how unbelievable that would have been to see in an audition room or on tape or something. Can you even imagine? It's like, whoa.
It's
like
just wall to wall with that guy.
Yeah. I mean, that would have been like watching something on fire. It's like unreal.
Yeah.
But it's a huge decision. Huge. Because A, he's not a known actor, and B, he's a tour de force, just like Robin Williams. So, like, he's going to do what he's going to do. You can't totally control him. And the character is really wacky. Like, really wacky. So, here's what I mean. Ace Ventura doesn't live in a real world. He lives in a magical world where like being a complete jackass is not a thing anybody gets offended by. That's the first thing, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Like he's a legit jackass from minute one to minute end. He described himself as trying to be the James Bond of pet detectives, and I think that's not wrong.
That's
that.
That's what they were going for.
And I think he does a comedy James Bond weird like hybrid. Like I think there is some James Bond to this performance.
He straight up does a Sean Connery impression.
Right. But also and there's music
out of control. Like what he's doing with his mouth at the end of that. Or you're like
lovely party, but I wasn't invited.
What? What is that an element of? How is that an impression? But you go on.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. You're right. It's like his mouth is a radio wave or something. Yeah, so like he also so like James Bond, he has kind of a mysterious sex appeal that in this movie is like completely baffling. Like just how would it ever be? But it is. Okay.
It's
Fair
really
enough.
stupid.
It's real dumb.
It's so dumb.
He can literally control or speak to animals. Like
Dude,
they abandon reality many times with that particular thing.
All right, so watching it for this time, that's the funniest. That was the bit that I laughed at the most. Is when
talking
he
to animals.
Finally gets into his apartment after they all his animals hid right from the from the landlord, and then he just whistles and then they all come out and it's like that safari music.
Yes,
but then all he does is he gets down on his knees and just like
sings.
Screams to the heaven. Oh, and it's just like I don't know why. It was just like that's when you knew what movie you were in. It was like a perfect send off to like, all right, what's this? This guy's an asshole. Nothing makes sense. The first 10 minutes have been like funny but rocky. I'm not sure where this is going. And then I was like, you know what? I'm on board. This fucking movie. What the hell is going on?
Right. The first sequence is very misleading in some ways because it's a little sleazier than the rest of the movie is.
Yeah, it is.
A little sleazy. Not a lot, but a little sleazier.
It's doing most of the legwork for beats that are like he's he's actually like, even though he's gonna act like he is a professional, he's actually like kind of just an average Joe piece of shit.
Right.
You know, he has to hide from his landlord, stuff like that.
It's actually the closest we come to the Raymond Chandler beats that like undergird this story as actually kind of a noir tale. Like that's what it is.
Yeah, I like that. But pointing that out, it's a noir. Yeah,
that's what it is. I mean, you know, it's one
a
of
detective
many
film. Yeah,
one of many.
It's
funny
not that far.
detective
It's
films.
just you forget because it couldn't look closer to a noir, or couldn't look more far away.
Yeah, but that does tell you why they have. I mean, the first sequence in particular with the guy that he gets the Shih Tzu from, and then the woman he delivers it to, both of them are incredible. I'm going to say more about them later, but they don't. They set a tone for a kind of grimier movie than this is, for a lot of reasons. So anyway, we'll go back to that. So
yeah.
I think probably the most important thing, and the reason we all like Ace Ventura, but we have to remember what it means for a movie, is Ace Ventura rejects social reality. Like he refuses to respect the rules of reality, and all comedians do that to some degree. But Ace Ventura literally doesn't respond to people as though they're human beings. He responds with bits, like he does bits, and like what makes it okay for us as an audience is that we're watching him and not interacting with him. Like this movie, we sort of observe the character more than we connect to the character. And that makes it funny. If this guy was your friend, you would fucking hate this guy. You would hate him.
And he wouldn't. He couldn't exist.
No.
Like you're saying, there's no way in which he interacts with any authority figure whatsoever. He just kind of steamrolls them. You know, he literally runs over cops. You know?
Yes, and that's a thing we're going to talk about. It's great.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to definitely talk about that.
And he also catches bullets with his teeth. So everything, that whole sequence, everything is magic.
It's all fair game, right? His relationship with Dan Marino, by the way, which I'm not going to go into much detail about, amazing. Like it's just very funny. Okay, so because of the way Ace Ventura is, I mean, he's a black hole of like he's a reality black hole. It's a very difficult character to make a world that would sustain him. And because of that, we have to do a lot of very careful supporting work to actually make the reality that he lives in seem like a place where he could be. So to give you kind of an illustration of how other filmmakers handle this, imagine something like Grand Budapest Hotel. In Grand Budapest Hotel, we have Ray Fiennes playing that hotelier, right? And he's kind of he's sort of a mix of a slightly ruthless, slightly compassionate, but very like rule bound in a funny way. And it fits a hotel, but also the way it's done, the way he is so ruthless that you can't make that movie work if everyone else in it is not a cartoon character.
Right.
Like it's really the only way any of Wes Anderson's movies work is number one, costumes and production design, right? Those are big parts of it. But then you have to get characters who themselves are sort of a kind of unreal. There's an unreality to them, and they all have to have the same deadpan feeling to make the jokes work. Yes. So, and it's in that case, like the way that Wes Anderson's made it work is he gets big time stars and then dresses them with like eye patches and stuff. And so we accept the sort of tweeness of the world, right? Like
perfect analysis of Wes Anderson, by the way.
But doesn't he do that? Am I wrong? That's what he does.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Put a hat on it. Put a bird on it. It's literally that twee world.
Give him a Nietzsche stash. Right, exactly. Like he's very much like everybody in his movie could be a pirate captain.
I just can't sanction your buffoonery, which is what Tommy Lee Jones said to Jim Carrey. Yeah.
Great.
After that, what was that? Batman Forever? I don't know.
Does he say that?
He doesn't say it in the... No, this is legitimately one actor to another. He says, I cannot... I hate you, I really don't like you, and I cannot sanction your buffoonery. That's like he just hated Jim Carrey.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's...
That makes my next point even better. Okay, so look. So... in the same way that Wes Anderson's movie doesn't work if he doesn't put Willem Dafoe in an eye patch and like have him do this deadpan thing, or like have Adrian Brody be some weird evil guy with a goatee, Ace Ventura doesn't work unless you have people who support a sillier world than normal and do it in a way that doesn't draw attention to it. So, like, here, I'm going to start this point with a thought experiment. And that is, imagine if you cast Gene Hackman or, and I wrote this down, you can testify, Tommy Lee Jones, anywhere in this movie. I did. Anywhere in this movie. Can you imagine either of them in this movie?
Can you just repeat the question?
It's a thought experiment, okay? Now, I'm not asking you to be creative here. I'm just asking you to evaluate based on the way actors are. Can you imagine Gene Hackman or Tommy Lee Jones anywhere in Ace Ventura? Like, do they fit anywhere?
Thank you for this.
Go ahead.
And yes,
yes. Right, I knew you were going to do this. It
will not be good, but absolutely yes. I can imagine it.
I know you
and
have
it's my
the ability.
favorite thing. Everything else is. I want to stop the episode and just do this now. Imagine Gene Hackman. Imagine Gene fucking Hackman.
But like, you can admit that, okay? Because honestly, I want to move on here. So like, you can admit though that to make Gene Hackman or Tommy Lee Jones be in Ace Ventura, you have to violate who they are. Like, you have to violate who they are to make it work, right? Like, they don't belong in this world. Can you acknowledge that, or do we need to argue about it?
I'm sorry. Okay, more on that later. Yes, you are right.
Okay, thank you.
It is nigh impossible. But okay.
It's not impossible. It's more that, like, aside from us being hilarious
you
guys,
said it.
Right?
Yes,
they don't
you said
fit.
it.
They don't fit. Okay, so let's talk about what this director did with casting to make Ace Ventura work. Okay, so I've basically divided everything into a few groups, like characters into groups that are all strategic groups. Okay, so the first one is group one. I'm calling the equally absurd cartoon characters. Okay, so like these are people in the movie that are so wacky that they create the impression that Ace Ventura is not actually the only crazy person in this world. And they're also performed in an offbeat way to sell kind of a sense of like, oh, this is just a silly, like it creates a sense of this world's full of kind of crazy, bizarre characters that don't totally add up. So that's the first group. Okay, so in that group is Ron Camp, the billionaire, right? So he's the guy who hosts that party, right?
Right, yeah.
So now they don't draw a lot of attention to him, but like, let's stop and consider what this man is, okay? First of all, he's French. Don't know why.
Okay.
He's humorless, like just doesn't understand jokes, doesn't get them, doesn't like them, right? Mm-hmm. Incredibly easily embarrassed, right? Mm-hmm. Just like, by the way, opposite of any billionaire. Billionaires are never embarrassed like this man is. He limps. We don't know why he limps, but he limps.
That's true. He does limp.
And he has a shark collection.
Yeah, he's a Bond villain. Right. That's the whole... Right? That's what they're doing, right?
Yes, he's a Bond villain, but also, like, he's played in this way that's not... Like, he's not evil. He's just sort of awkward. He's played in this very awkward way where he, like, everything's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, he doesn't know how to handle anything that Ace Ventura
and I think
does.
That's because they wants to show that Ace Ventura as a character is a foil to literally everyone. There's no member of high society or low society that is, that is free from his, volley of missiles that are just constantly exploding from his core,
that are immune to his poop jokes, which is
like
what
a real Gene Hackman type.
No, but I think, see, the difference between this character and Gene Hackman is because he's so silly, it also sort of elevates the overall feeling of silliness in the movie, which lets us accept Ace Ventura as being as not having a cognitive dissonance, right? Because that's the whole point. You got to create a world where you accept Ace Ventura without being like, this is dumb and stupid. Like, and to do that, you have to elevate the silliness of the world so that you don't ask that question as much. Okay, so that's the first example. Second example, and he's not memorable, but the character's name is Woodstock. Okay, he's played by Rainer Skeen, and he's like
he's the hacker, right?
Yeah, he's a hippie hacker who lives under Cannibal Corpse. Like he just like lives under that band, and all he's doing is like disrupting every act against animals from his like little demon nest down there.
Yeah.
And what is his deal? Who is he? Why is he doing it? I mean, aside from morals, right? I get that, but like, why? How does he make a living? What is he doing? All of that's crazy. Why does he have 2 glasses? He has 2 sets of glasses.
These are good questions.
He intentionally puts them back on to hack a computer. He like takes them off and then he puts them both back on to hack the computer. And like, what? Why? You know?
Are you saying that it's necessary that like for Ace to have a friend, that means that person needs to be also inexplicable?
Yes, that's my point to basically both these guys. They both have to be inexplicable, and because of that, again, elevates the idea that Ace is not alone. Right? Okay.
Which gives credence to the idea that he can act like an asshole to anyone,
and people will accept it.
You can think about it, but you're not going to be like distracted by it when you're watching the movie.
Correct. Now, second group is a group that I call actors who made huge choices. Okay. Yeah. Now, this group, like, I think the strategy here is that they all sort of create a pervasive sense of unreality, right? They're all silly enough that, again, it elevates the floor, right? So it's not just that Ace is one of a kind. It also is like, and even normal people are very exaggerated in this world. Okay, so here's some examples. My favorite, and the one you mentioned, is Mr. Shickadance, who is the landlord, and he's played by Mark Margolis. And he probably got cast just on saying the word Ventura, right? Like, they cast him immediately when he did that line. So, watch how he acts in that scene, okay? He's doing the biggest sniffs you've ever seen, and he gets very, he's very animated in a way that's like, what is this guy's deal? You know, and then contrast him with the part he played in Breaking Bad.
Yeah, right? I was going to say, yeah.
So he played Hector Salamanca in Breaking Bad. Now,
which he had to emote just using his face.
Yes,
know, like
using his
use words.
Right. Yeah, he's the guy who was bound to the wheelchair with a single bell, and it's played very subtly often, and you know that performance is just in some ways exactly the opposite of what he does here as Mr. Shickadance. So you know the actor's making a decision to be this way. You know, that's important. So he decides to be Ventura, right? He decides to be that guy.
They knew what movie they were in.
Correct. Okay, now this is a part that I'd never thought anything about until I watched it this time. Roger Podacter, okay? He's the guy who's like Courtney Cox's partner who like works for the Dolphins, right? He's played by
he dies.
Yes, he dies,
movie.
Correct.
Yeah.
He gets thrown out of a window, but he's in like 4 scenes, like between 2 and 4 scenes. He's played by Troy Evans, a guy who's still working. He's in the show Bosch. And he...
Love a Bosch, man.
Yeah.
Bosch for days, dude.
Yeah,
I'm a Bosch
boy.
head.
You're a Bosch boy.
You a Bosch head?
Yeah. No, I've never seen Bosch, but I know
with
of
Bosch.
it.
Fuck with Bosch. All right, let's go.
Dude, I love it. So Podacter acts like the saddest whittle boy in the entire time of this movie. And
he's like a little rascal.
Yes. And it's like, it's a baffling performance. It's baffling because he doesn't exude any authority at all. He acts like just the middle-aged, put-honest man in the world. Yeah. And he works for the Miami Dolphins. You know what I mean? He's very successful.
All right, so you're throwing shade on the franchise now? Is that what you're saying? Is this a football? No. Is this all an elaborate
There's the whole way, to talk about how the Dolphins suck. No. So look... he's like high up in a professional football organization. So like this man doesn't fit that culture. Like there's no way this man's in that world, right?
Fair.
And he's also kind of doing like a Rodney Dangerfield thing. Like he's a little bit like, oh, it shouldn't have been us. Oh, what are we going to do about it? Like he's like that guy a little bit.
Yeah, he does.
So case in point, and I just want everyone to remember this because it's really fun to go back and watch the movie and notice this stuff. There's a single shot of him where he's covering up a rabbit's foot. Where
What's the setup?
So the scene
Oh, I
is,
remember.
Yeah. This is the scene
talking
where
about the superstitious
yes,
players.
correct.
Yeah.
And like they just cut to him covering up his rabbit's foot on his keychain, and then tilt up to his face, and the face he's making is unbelievable. Like
if you don't remember that from the film, because that's a super esoteric reference, but it is really good. It's right up top, and it shows us exactly everything you're saying. They're having a meeting talking about Snowflake, the dolphin who has been stolen.
Who's been stolen,
needs to essentially, because the football players are well known for being superstitious, they're not going to be able to play in the Super Bowl well when they know that their mascot's been stolen. And so the owner's throwing shade at the fact that, like, you guys are a bunch of, like, superstitious nincompoops.
Yeah.
And he covers his rabbit's foot in that moment. And it's like super like, yes, sir. Okay, sir, kind of moment.
It's a dumb joke, and he plays it as he just plays it like a bad little boy. Like that's what he does.
Yeah,
and it's really
not
dumb.
A good joke, but his delivery absolutely makes for it.
Right. And again, that's not the only way Roger Pedactor could have been played. He could have been played 100 different ways. But he wasn't.
I see kind of what you're saying, because the actors who make the big choices, it's like sometimes the joke isn't there.
And he's making one. Yes.
They just have to like not mimic the energy, but mimic the like stakes and the emphasis of someone like Ace Ventura to make it more believable.
Right.
So sometimes those jokes aren't even necessarily jokes. They're just there to kind of pepper the world with unreality, as you said. I think is that what you're saying?
Yes, and also I think you're right, and all you've said it perfectly. And also a little bit, he also represents a little bit the silliness of authority, which is a thing we're going to cover in a little bit later. But he does erode the authority structures, which are that's a very important thing for Ace Ventura to work, because if you don't have like inept authority figures, Ace Ventura is completely impossible. So that's he also does that job. Okay, so last person in group 2 of actors who make big choices is Mrs. Finkel. Okay, so this is the character is played by Alice Drummond, and this is the scene where Ace Ventura like goes back and discovers Ray Finkel's parents to find out whatever happened to him. And Ray Finkel, if you haven't watched Ace Ventura, Ray Finkel turns out to be a person who missed a Super Bowl kick for the Dolphins and then went crazy and then ends up kidnapping Dan Marino. But twist is also the police captain who's played by Sean Young. Okay, so Ace Ventura gets onto that story and goes and investigates Ray Finkel, and it turns out his parents are living in this like graffitied nightmare, still waiting for him to come home because he went crazy. So,
it's straight out of the movie Seven.
Yes, very much. Yeah, it's very dumb. It's very silly and dumb.
It's over the top.
Yeah. So Mrs. Finkel, I think the thing to acknowledge here is she's playing like Stepford wife times 10. Right? She's playing like mindless, like crazy loopy mom. But she's playing it. She's doing a huge version of it, and this is what I mean.
She's also doting grandma.
Yeah.
Because she makes cookies and stuff.
Right. She's definitely infantilizing Ray and also his fans, and there's and of course that's selling a type. But like the actor is first of all, she's not blinking. She blinks one time in the entire sequence. Like I counted because I was I noticed it. She blinks once. And she's doing this thing with her mouth where she's got this like sort of frozen open mouth, like eager thing.
Smile.
And it's kind of a smile. It's also kind of a grimace. And it's definitely
off-putting.
Yeah, but it's a decision. And it's a decision because there's a moment where they walk into Ray Finkel's room and you see the actress has plastered that on her face. And like if you've worked with actors at all, like they don't do that. Like that's not a thing a person does. No. So this is a choice this woman's making to create the Stepford wife sensation, and it's huge. It's a huge choice. But because the movie is so wacky, it sort of feels like it fits.
Right. Yeah.
Cool decision.
It's very much so of the like type of care, like what you're designing here, or talking about the internal design of this movie.
Right.
It reminds me a lot of like UHF and Weird Al movies.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because
like she could be an alien, and we'd be like, yeah, she's basically this. Like what she is basically could be an alien.
Right. If you ripped her head off and an alien's head popped out in a different story,
it'd be like, sure. It would be like,
totally. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. She could have been in Men in Black. You know, like totally. Okay, so that's the second group. Group 3 is, I think you're gonna love this, Abe. Get ready. Group 3 I have titled Incredible Faces, or Typecasting.
Already my favorite. Typecasting, yeah.
Incredible
yeah, there's
faces.
a lot of that.
Yeah, there is. In this group I would say this is a group that comes from the Tim Burton school of casting. And by that I mean sometimes if you cast people with very strong facial or body features, the audience draws emotional content from them without them having to do anything. Okay, now the reason I say Tim Burton is an example of this is because like Tim Burton makes, in addition to his live action films, he makes animated films like Nightmare Before Christmas and others, right? So you watch those films, you're like, oh, that's kind of like the most Tim Burton. Like it's the most exaggerated. But then go watch something like Sleepy Hollow. Sleepy Hollow, he casts actors so that he has found this like weird alternate look that he captured in Nightmare Before Christmas. He did it through casting in Sleepy Hollow. It's unbelievable. You know, he gets these people with crazy facial features and then puts them in wigs and stuff, and it looks like a cartoon cabal of people. And he's the best at that, but there's other people that do this as well. It's a very... I think you might call it a low art trope because it sort of relies on our stereotypes of people. But they exist, and they're real, and there's a reason why people are generally attractive in Hollywood. You know what I mean? Like, this is just a thing about human nature. So we're going to dive into it. Unless Abe has a comment here. This is a perfect Abe comment moment.
I unfortunately don't have anything for you. Yeah. Okay. I think you're on point here.
Okay. Okay, so the first, and I think the most underrated of the incredible faces is Mr. Finkel. So this is the husband of Mrs. Finkel. He's played by Bill Zuckert. Just look at his face. Like, he is the epitome of beat down by the world, grouchy old man. Like, he just looks like it. He could be the sweetest guy in the world, but my God, his face. You know, like, so he looks like a hermit. Like if you had to say, what's a hermit look like? You'd draw this guy. That's what he looks like.
He's definitely like the wrong kid died. You know,
yeah, exactly. Yes, he for some reason he feels like a farmer. I don't know why, but he does feel like a farmer.
Because he's like sun, you know, parched and sunburned, and like he feels like he's salt of the earth.
Yeah, world beat down on him a little bit. It's true.
Yeah.
So the second one, this is one of my favorite characters, is the guy from the beginning whose name is Gruff Man. That's all. That's what he's titled as. He's the guy from the very opening of the movie. He was played by Randall Tex Cobb. Like, look at that guy's face. Like, take a look at it.
Oh, I know Tex Cobb. Dude.
Right. Okay, great. Yeah,
he's a biker of the apocalypse in Raising Arizona.
Yes, he is. And he
sets rabbits on fire by driving near them.
Right.
This guy rules.
He's regularly cast as like just overbearing, gruff asshole.
And once or twice as like a really sensitive, like
against type,
against type, yeah,
right. But like he's a guy who has a face that has a whole story to it, and you don't have to do anything other than put him in an outfit, and you accept it, right? So like it's again, these are all stereotypes, but again, you have to use stereotypes as a person who casts.
This is pretty standard in comedy, though.
Really
I'd say the Incredible Faces. It's just like look at this person. I mean, and there's something about the, you know, theater of, I don't even know what, I'm sure that has a name, but it's not like freak show, but it kind of comes from that concept. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Where it's just like, let's get someone who's uniquely looking and let's all have a good time looking at that person is highly problematic and definitely something that comedies have done since the beginning of comedies.
Right. I mean,
you know?
And then there are people who have really leaned into it and done great things with our stereotypes. Like Rachel Dratch is a person who's really leaned into like her face and her unusual facial features. She knows how to milk it for laughs. It's a normal thing. I don't know that it's a good thing, but it's a normal thing. So
it's typecasting. It's all the things that go along with that.
So I do want to comment about this. I actually think this guy's performance is kind of incredible.
It's so short and sweet.
It is, but that guy could have walked, this. If you and I had been auditioning him for Cracked, and he walked in the door, and he gave the line, "I don't give a rat's ass," the way that he does it in this movie, you would have cast him immediately. It's so good. That one line. Amazing.
It's all there. It's all there, baby. Yeah.
Rarely does one line just really
Back
get
it
me,
up.
but that one did.
Hit the showers.
Yeah. Okay, so also in this group, Einhorn's goons. So there's like two guys who are like
Best
holding.
goons.
Yeah. There's two guys
Best goons.
who are holding Dan Marino hostage, who are also ex-football players, I guess. And like they have lines, but they're definitely just cast because of how they look. They look like just sort of aging thugs, right? That's what they look like. So there's that. Now, and the last one on this group that I wanted to talk about is the sexy woman. That's the title of the part. That's the name of the part.
Okay.
Who's played by Rebecca Ferrari. And like everything from her outfit to her behavior is to suggest playmate, right? Like that's what she is supposed to suggest. And also she was a playmate. So that's not that far-fetched. So she adds, I think, a kind of like, I think it's important because it's a quote unquote noir story. She adds an element of it not being wholesome, because without her, the movie is a lot more wholesome. And I don't think the movie wanted to be edgy, and she is part of that decision, whether we like it or not.
It's the randomness of the world, because he saves the dog and then instead of getting payment, which he asks for, he's like, "Can I get like my car got damaged?" Because, and then she gives him like what I imagine based off, because we only see because she just ducks down below, so we only see like waist up on Ace Ventura, and it seems like she gives him a blowjob like
it's a
whirlwind.
Yeah, it's a thunderbeach.
It's
for sure.
It's like a tornado, because he's just like swinging around. Yeah, and it's just like, okay, so nothing makes sense. This wouldn't happen.
Totally stupid.
None of this would happen. Yeah,
but I will say, as a 13-year-old, I laughed forever at that joke. Like that was like a perfect like teen joke. Which is ultimately what they're trying to do, right? Like edgy comedy is largely for younger audiences.
Well, the sleaze stuff is for teenagers,
right? And it worked. As a guy
or adults who are teenagers,
right? Exactly.
They're like,
exactly.
Look at this, sexy lady,
right? Okay, so now I think is a group that Abe will have a lot to say about. And that is the group 4 is the absurd authority figures. Okay,
hell yeah.
Yeah. So. There's a lot of them, but I sort of narrowed it down to the 3 most important. The first is the Dolphins owner, who we only see in one scene, but he's played by Noble Willingham. And like he is just a Yosemite Sam parody, right?
He always has played just Yosemite Sam. He's always played it.
He has a great monologue. It's very funny, the things that he's saying, and he is definitely like. He also could have been the character from The Simpsons who wears the 10-gallon hat. Like same guy, No,
So he's perfect.
Yeah, but also because he's
no notes.
because he's so silly, he like in a way it sort of erodes the seriousness of the problem. You know what I mean? Like when you make an authority figure this silly, it's like now all of a sudden the stakes are lower. Which in Ace Ventura, that's helpful. The stakes need to be lower because that guy, that guy needs to be able to overpower the movie, not like by the skin of his teeth succeed.
And we don't want any like lives or jobs to be on the line in a way that are like, this is gonna get in the way of us laughing. So even though he's from where all the power stems from, yeah, he's correct. Like we can take some jabs at him.
Now, also on this list is Sergeant Aguado. Okay, now Aguado is also a stand-in for the rest of the cops, really, but he's kind of the only one with real lines. And he's played by John Capodice. And if there was ever a flimsier bully in a movie, I'd love to see it. The guy looks like he's actually kind of a sweetheart. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I think he is a sweetheart.
At one point, like, Einhorn says to him, like, get the fuck out. You see yourself the fuck out or something like that. Probably not fuck because it's PG, but,
right.
And he goes, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, just the
like,
meekest little
it's
guy.
It's a Simpsons joke.
Yes.
He's like a bully and like a goon, but then at the same time, he's got like a heart of gold.
Yeah, I mean, the movie never redeems him in any way, and that's fine.
Right.
But
he's like sensitive and like you don't need to say it like that, which is like, well, you're a bully, dude.
Yeah, he doesn't really feel like a real bully. And I think that the director, whether consciously or not, did himself a favor there, because really all he is just a hurdle for Ace to clear very easily.
Yeah. By the way, the first time they do that, I have to say, for a movie that is in like, what was this, 94 or something?
Yeah, 93, right? I think.
Ace Ventura pretty much undoes him in a very like effective way. Like Aguado squashes a cockroach and he's like, he just makes fun of him because like, you like animals and stuff.
Yeah.
And Ace Ventura's response is, I can clearly see that the motive was that you were very scared of this cockroach's dick because it was much bigger than yours, basically. And it's just such a burn that clearly, like, everyone goes like, ooh, and stuff. But Aguado is like undone.
Yep,
he's like,
that's it.
Get the fuck out of here.
Also,
it's just like, yeah.
Also,
it's
Ace
a good burn.
Kicks his ass immediately. Like Ace, it turns into a fight. Ace kicks his ass immediately. So like. Again, this is the lead detective in this city, so not a very formidable police force.
He's a piece of shit,
right?
And we love to see it.
Yeah, you love to see it, exactly. Okay,
love to see him getting taken down a peg.
Last character in this group merits some discussion, and that character is Lois Einhorn, played by Sean Young. Okay, so Lois Einhorn, spoilers, is also Ray Finkle. Ray Finkle, the male kicker for the Dolphins. Apparently decided to dress as a woman and pass as a police detective, and then is going on this whole sort of murder binge to get justice on Dan Marino, who he blames for setting him up to fail as a kicker.
Straight up transitioning, though.
Yes.
We don't know if it's because that's how Ray Finkle think. Like that movie, which we can talk. I think I can see why it begs some suggestion. The movie does not give us answers to what's going on with Ray Finkle. In fact, we kind of make that character synonymous with mentally ill. So that's like a big problem there. Right?
It's not synonymous because we intuit it. They say that. Like he went crazy, then transitioned into a woman by killing a hiker of the same name and taking
everyone
her identity.
like vomits and stuff, and it's very not cool.
They're all grossed out by the man dressed as a woman, like that. It's
exactly very classic 90s, 80s.
Yeah,
it's phobias.
It's dumb. It's not really funny. It feels really bad when you watch it now. But I think like the reason that beat exists at all in the story is because again, it's trying to be a noir story. And the secret juice of a noir film always has to be something that's very lurid for us to be interested in the conspiracy. And I'm not saying that this is good, but I'm saying that was the calculus they did, right? Is like the idea of a trans person is like in the 90s so absurd that they put it as the main conspiracy. Fine.
Right.
Not good, awful, but that's the character. The thing that's fascinating about it is Sean Young's performance. Because on the one hand, she definitely plays Vixen, right? She plays like very stupid cartoon Vixen.
At one specific scene, she
few times.
Amps it up.
Yeah, a few times, but mostly in the one scene.
I kind of love her portrayal, though, to be honest. Like when they're fighting and stuff, she's like going for it.
Well,
like she's really going for it.
She's so over the top. Like, she's the match of Ace Ventura in terms of emotional energy. Like, she's the only person. She should be. Yeah, she should be. Correct. And, like, a lot of her lines are really dumb. Like, not just the writing, but her performance of it is dumb. So much so that I was like, oh, is she just bad? And then I went back and watched Blade Runner So I had to watch Blade Runner for this deep
as
director's
her
piece.
portrayal of Rachel.
Yeah, and I was like, oh no, this woman's incredible. Like, she can do incredible things. And certainly she's been sort of stereotyped by some of her off stage antics. But like, she's a good actor. Like, don't let anybody tell you she's not. Mm-hmm. She's a good actor. So these are choices to be unbelievable on purpose. And I think that's interesting. So she kind of fits in a few categories here because she's doing a huge version of a character.
Performance, yeah.
Right. And she's also
an authority figure.
Yeah. She's a lot of different things. I mean, obviously she was also cast probably specifically for the let's strip the detective scene at the end. You know what I mean? I'm sure that's a big part of it. And because she's a name. Like, she was a name at the time. So there's a lot of reasons, but I think looking back at the performance, the choices are interesting. You kind of wonder if she's trying to actually play a person with that kind of fractured mental, like just sort of mental health, like that fractured idea. And she's like overdoing it. Like, you wonder if there's actual truth behind the performance in some weird ways. And I don't mean truth like out in the world truth. I mean, she's internalized all these facts from the script and is trying to do a good job with it. You know, that's interesting to me. I don't know. I'd have to watch it really carefully, and I'm not going to. But interesting character, and you also need to believe enough that she's ridiculous that you accept the end, where she gets very easily defeated by Ace Ventura, right? So that's So her manic thing is in part to support that as well. Hopefully, I've covered this with enough kindness that we don't have to.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay, last group. You can't talk about this movie without these two. These are the straight men, right? The people who are not doing wacky characters, and there's basically two, right?
Identity characters.
Yeah, yes, except for normally an identity character is also a protagonist, and they're
protagonist,
not.
That's
so they're playing the straight man, right? They're not in on the gag, and those two characters are Tony Locke, who plays Emilio, the detective who Ace Ventura interrogates with his ass.
You mean Tone Loc?
What did I say? Tony? No, Tone.
Tone Loc? Tone Loc.
Is that how it's pronounced? What is?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. And he also has a track at the end.
I knew he had a track at the end. Right. So he was a stand-up comedian and also a musician, right? Like, that's who he was before this?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's an interesting cast member because his job, I think, is to be sort of, the one guy who gets Ace Ventura, right? Like, that's part of it. But also to kind of distance the cop's behavior from a reasonable person. Like, he's sort of there as a critique on the cops in a lot of ways. Right? Because Lois Einhorn's so unreasonable to him, and yet he's like, he can very easily circumvent the cops' like infrastructure. Like, it's so easy for him to do anything he needs to do that I feel like he's kind of being used. Well, first of all, he's being used tokenistically, right? Like, I think that's fair to say. Yeah. So he's being used tokenistically, and I think they're kind of leaning into that to sort of make a character who will also sort of not be part of the police station, like sort of be a critique of the police station, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he's an ally.
Yes.
He's the only ally in the authority figure, which is the cops, because he's, as a pet detective, he has a lot of run-ins with cops.
Right.
And so he's the only guy who's got his back.
And every PI needs a guy on the force who can give him the scoop. Like, that's just sort of a PI thing. And so Tone Loc. Are you sure it's Tone Loc? Is that really true? Tone Loc?
100%.
Okay, wow, I should have looked that up.
I have been completely saying it wrong my entire life.
Tone Loc.
Which would,
I'll accept it. Should have looked that up before we started recording. Tone Loc. So his job is to be that character. It's not my favorite. I feel bad for him because I don't think it's the best outing for him. I think he isn't allowed to be as funny as he is. Like he kind of just has to let Ace Ventura be the funny one.
They just, so many times it's just Ace says something and then he'll roll his eyes and then go, all right, Ace, let's get back on task here.
Right. So there's that. Okay, so now the very last character I want to talk about is Melissa Robinson, played by Courtney Cox. Okay, so Courtney Cox has an incredibly challenging role here. because she has to be so many things. She has to be, number one, attractive, right? And like in this movie, that's actually important because Ace, it's just like a thing that we need in movies. Ace has to also be sexy. And so we need a sexy woman to like him, right? Like that's just sort of the weird movie math that we need.
Oh boy.
I don't know why, but that's the truth. And Courtney Cox, especially in the early 90s, complete knockout, right? Complete knockout. Now, what's interesting about Courtney Cox is she often fights against being typecast as the hot girl. She doesn't want to be cast that way. The most famous example of that is the part that was offered to her in Friends was Rachel. She was offered Jennifer Aniston's part, and she turned it down because she wanted to play the neurotic character of Monica instead. And that, I think, is fascinating, right? Because it tells you people thought of her as the sort of like, you know, the object, right? And the beautiful comedian. And she doesn't agree with that. She's like, no. I want to be the funny one. That's what I want to do. And so here she is in this movie, you know, and she really has to she has to create a reality, but also is the only straight man who kind of acknowledges that Ace is like out of control. She has to like really weave this interesting tapestry of a real human being who can also be attracted to him, who also makes him funnier, which she does. And
absolutely.
And adds she adds a lot of levity to this movie. It's a really good performance by her in a lot of ways.
It's one of the better. It makes a lot of sense that in the Ace Ventura vehicle that launched his career, he owes so much to her ability to basically, like you said, adjust, switch gears to like play against whatever type he's playing. If it's a serious beat, which you really never know if it's gonna be justifiable or not, she is that justification.
Correct.
She's always there to like either lay it up like she does entirely, like the whole sequence at Shady Acres, the mental institution, where he's doing improv and she's just filling in the details for the doctor, or they cut to she's like, well, we just like solve the case. All we have to do is wait. Well, what do you suggest? What do we do? And then they're boning.
Right.
You know, it's just like it's kind of amazing how she's able to take absolutely no justification, because the scene is not justifying why anything is going to happen next. And Ace Ventura is basically just a wild card maniac child who's just picking up objects in front of him and playing with them. She is the one who's actually propelling the movie. Strangely enough.
She definitely is mostly reactionary, but there's a fascinating scene between them that is before they have sex, and that is like the moment when he's upset about his theory not working out, and he's being just terrible to her, right? Like where he's talking like, I feel sorry for your dog. Like, are you gonna beat him? Like that whole scene, you know?
It's
so
he calls
her
one
fatty. Unbelievable.
Well, no, way better. Saddlebags.
Yeah, saddlebags.
Saddlebags is one of the funniest things.
Yeah.
I'm like, why didn't that? Because that's just funny for everyone. I know it's like a joke about her breasts, but I just want to call everyone saddlebags from now on.
That scene is
it's a nonsense
in
term.
Hindsight very funny. Like now that I'm older,
saddlebags,
much funnier than I thought it was at the time.
I totally forgot about that.
She tells us a lot about her character in that scene, because she definitely acts like a human being, but also you can see about her character that her character's a little bit long-suffering and also kind of lets him be who he is. Like she kind of she understands how he is and kind of can accept it, and then he crosses the line with her and she's like, okay, that's it. You need to leave. Right? But like she does a very believable sort of patient friend figure thing with him, and it's not just dumb writing. It's actually acting. And she's very talented. She's one of the most underrated comedy actors we've ever had. Because
she's definitely underrated in Friends. That's
right.
Absolutely.
She's so good in that show, and like
because she's understated.
Yes,
she's kind of Elaine. She kind of picks up, in that same era. Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Well, that's the thing that made her so good in Friends. The thing that made her great in Friends is also the thing that made her great in this movie, which is she can believably like she can make a fool, somebody doing a completely stupid thing, seem believable, and we accept it. She's incredible at that. And then later, as she developed as an actor, she also was able to more effectively play the fool. Like she got better at that as time went on. But at this point in her career, she's just a very funny foil and really good at lifting up her scene partner. And without her, this movie doesn't work. And like the other thing to say about it is, and like I know this is a lot of praise, but like I mean this because I was very impressed with her when I watched it this time. She is not doing a half-assed job in this film. A lot of movies where you get like the attractive woman with the stupid comedian as the love interest, the women sort of turn into like these like Stepford wives where like they're just sort of not invested in it, you know? They're like, sure.
I'm looking at you like Billy Madison.
Right. Yes, Billy Madison, great example. Or like a lot of movies Heather Graham has been in, or just, you know, movies where it's like the women characters are just sort of thoughtless and therefore they just go with what the script says and they love you because now's the time that happens. And you don't feel the human being behind it. Courtney Cox, you feel the human being in this part. Right?
You do. You absolutely do.
Like she finds Ace funny. That's important. She thinks he's funny, you know, and he is funny. Like not only is he funny for us as an audience, but within the world of the movie, he's still a funny guy. And she gets that.
And she kind of takes him serious from the beginning, you know?
Correct.
Like, whereas everyone else, I know there's a lot of work that you put in, like, and you're absolutely right, how everyone kind of acknowledges or ignores him, but no one really comments on him.
Yes.
She acknowledges, comments upon, and also, like, she never ignores, but she always, like, oh, I see what you're saying, or that's actually brilliant, or something like that, or like, nah, Ace, that's bullshit. You know, like she's able to navigate between all those, you know,
yes,
gear shifts.
It's a really challenging part for tone. It's not an easy part to direct. I guarantee you, the director had his hands off with this in a lot of ways. Like, this is, you know, who she reminds me of in some ways, and I know this is like a really high compliment, but I mean this. I mean this for both people. She reminds me a little bit of Caitlin Large. Like who we cast in rom.com.
Oh yeah.
She does in a lot of ways. Like because
I think she would be very I think she would be very charmed to hear that, you know.
I mean, I have a high opinion of Caitlin because I worked with her, but the thing that made Caitlin so great, and we had a lot of great actors at Cracked, but Caitlin really has such a great natural feel about how to be fun in a scene, like what a scene's about and how to be fun in it and to occupy it. And she's still flexible. That's not a lot. That's hard to get all that. And like Courtney Cox is that, you know, to the utmost. And I think, so I often didn't have to say much to Caitlin as the director because she sort of understood what she was supposed to do. I didn't have to build that character much. She came with most of it. And I guarantee you that's what happened here with Courtney Cox. It just feels like that to me. You know, like Courtney came with a lot of good decisions and the director's like, great, you have this under control. And it just takes a load off, you know, like great feeling. Yeah. Okay. So we've covered that. Just one sort of meta point about these two characters. You said it. They're the only ones who take Ace Ventura seriously. They also don't take the piss out of him. Most straight men in a comedy with a wacky character, they are critics. Right, they're there to like undermine or like be like, "What are you doing, man? You maniac!" Like that's their job to be to show like, "You're crazy. What you're doing is crazy, man." In Ace Ventura, they don't really do that. What they are is just sort of the only people who are kind to him, and that's fascinating, right? Like that's a directing and writing decision that helps make Ace Ventura palatable. Is like the normal people think he's fun, so you should too, and it's not often done in movies. Right, and don't you think that's interesting? I was surprised by that when I watched it this time.
Yeah, it's a great way of putting it.
Yeah. So, in conclusion, the first time I watched Ace Ventura when I was 13, I thought of it as the slapdick, silliest, who gives a shit movie in the world, and I think that was my impression all the way until I watched it again this time. But the truth is, this director, if nothing else, has a lot of skill with casting. They know how to make they know how to make good decisions.
They know how to build a universe.
Yeah, and it's not a really robust creative universe, but it's a universe that's a soft enough bed that we can accept Ace Ventura in it. Like otherwise we could not. And that is not an easy thing when you've given the entire comedy control of the movie over to Jim Carrey at his prime. Like, I don't even know what it would mean to direct Jim Carrey. Especially if he's like, just like, okay, I'm just going to make up some bits. Sometimes it'll be Star Trek. Sometimes it'll be weird face. Sometimes it'll be a poop joke. And you just deal with it. Like, that's not easy to create a cast that can support that. And the director did that. I think that's really interesting. Not every cast here did the comedy job. Some of them are, of course, very functional. Like the doctor you mentioned at the mental institution is a very functional actor, right. Good actor, functional actor. And you can tell when the choices were made that were just functional because they're not in a lot of scenes where they are. You
can tell also there's a shot of when after he drinks from the water fountain.
Yes.
And he slams, you can tell he laughs, and that means that it was an improv.
That's exactly what I was going to point out. You,
like the way in which he did that, yeah.
Right. You can if you watch the doctor in that scene, it's clear that they did not know what Jim Carrey was going to do, and the doctor dies laughing. And
he couldn't deal with several shots. The most notable one is right when his head hits the bench,
because God,
slams really hard.
Yeah,
and
I can't believe that he did that.
He loses it.
Like when I watched this movie that time, I forgot about that football bit altogether, and the violence that he hits his face into that couch is incredible. Like it's
a well-placed sound effect, man. God.
Yeah, but it also looks great. Like he really went for it, and it looks fucking awesome. It's very funny.
Fucking man.
It's really good. Jim Carrey's incredible. I don't want to take anything away from him, but like every really incredible actor, his strengths are also a weakness, and you have to find a way to shore that weakness up. And that's what this director did. He did a really nice job. And there is some high art here to Ace Ventura, I'm glad to say. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
There's some craftsmanship, very much so.
Well, that's my theory. That's all I had to say.
Yeah. Well inspected, detective. Now that you're done, can we get to the real episode?
I'm excited. Yeah, please.
So Gene Hackman and Tommy Lee Jones. Can you imagine? Right? Can we just look? I just want
The funny thing is, Tommy Lee Jones was in a couple wacky movies.
He was,
but he always plays. I mean, okay, so Men in Black is the only counterpoint. I was like, maybe he could work in Ace Ventura, because in Men in Black, that's another very silly universe. And he plays a guy who sort of reinforces it by being nonchalant about it. I just don't know how Tommy Lee Jones could have an interaction with Jim Carrey's Ace Ventura. I don't see how that could happen.
No, you can't sanction this buffoonery. Yeah, right. And in this, but imagine him. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you a few questions.
Poor Tommy Lee Jones has to speak with his ass. Oh my God. He has
to speak with his fucking ass. Tommy Lee Jones's horrible asshole speaking to you.
It's been 80 for like 25 years. That asshole's been 80 his whole life. Yeah.
Do not go in there. I don't even know what a Tommy Lee Jones impression is. I'm so bad at impression. Yeah, you'd have to do something like U.S. Marshals.
It's The Fugitive.
Every outhouse, dog house.
The Fugitive is the ultimate Tommy Lee Jones impression, right? Just like, all right,
do not everybody go in there.
Do not go in there.
Oh, fuck me. Fuck me.
Yeah, Gene Hackman was the one that I was like really trying to figure out, and I thought about him in Royal Tenenbaums. But Gene Hackman's is the ultimate everyman to me. That's what he's made his bread and butter on, right? As being sort of the everyman of cinema. And I know that Harrison Ford is quote unquote an everyman, but he's not really. Like Gene Hackman's a pretty regular guy.
He's an everyman hero.
Yeah.
Hackman's he was Lex Luthor. You know, he's got range. But he's usually later in his career he became like more hard nosed. Like I'm thinking of like him early days.
Yeah, like Popeye
he was just
I meant this like as Popeye in that 70s movie everybody loves so much, French Connection.
Yeah.
I do think that Gene Hackman is a sort of interesting actor to map for like what do we think masculinity means. Like there are definitely, I mean, there's a lot of them, but like he fits somewhere on that graph as like this guy defines masculinity in movies in some ways. That would be a really interesting Directorpiece project to like talk about masculinity as defined by leading men. But I'm not going to do that right now because that's going to take a very long time. But
I like it though.
Yeah, but someone should do that. Some guest should pick up that line and run with it. For sure. So, anything else about Ace Ventura?
Later episode. No. Alrighty
Not
then.
enough. Did you find him funny this time? Like, were you over were you over being over it?
I'll be honest. I got over it pretty quickly. Because I got over it pretty quickly. But there were several bits that got me.
Yeah.
And I don't know I can't decipher if it was because I like inhaled this movie as a kid and it was just nostalgia, or it was legitimately shit that I had forgotten I just thought was hilarious. Like him like screaming to the heavens surrounded by animals.
Yeah, that was really good.
Just it with like the swirling orchestra behind him. It's just like, what the fuck is this movie? That's hilarious.
You know what really got me this time when I was watching it? He goes, "Who the hell is that?" And then she goes, "Who?" And then he walks all the way across the room and points at a single tiny little picture at the end of the wall that no human being could ever see. And he did it in such a good way. It just made me laugh.
It's a cartoon.
That?
No, it's
who the hell is that?
Who the hell is that?
Yeah.
Lehu Zahur.
Right, that stuff I still don't
Tommy Lee Jones.
Like I'm not Tommy Lee Jones as saying loser. Oh god. Like his weird catchphrases, like the 90s just ruined those forever. Maybe some future generation that didn't get all those quotes thrown at them will think it's funny again. I don't know.
We'll have to do a companion piece on
Austin Powers.
Austin Powers.
Austin Powers is a gift to Ace Ventura because it replaced it. So at least there was a reprieve from people saying "alrighty then," because that was like a thing for like 10 years.
Geez.
It went on forever.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
It went on forever, and like I still don't think that stuff's funny, but I do think other things are funny. Like there's a scene where he's popping all that gum because he realized that he kissed a man. Right? That's dumb, but.
And the best follow-up, though, is Dan Marino following up and asking him, "Hey, where'd you get that gum?"
That's none of your business, and I'll take you to stay out of my personal things.
I just like that Dan Marino's like, "Hey, this is good gum."
Also, I didn't talk about the sports, the sports actors in this much because, to me, you just sort of get what you get when you cast sports actors. Dan Marino's not that bad in this. He's like acceptable. And
no, he totally knows where he's at.
He's
like,
fine.
He's just supposed to be like, "Oh, what's happening? Oh, crazy." Right. He's like a dummy. He's a dumb, fun guy.
And he is fun. I will say the one thing that is incredible that he does is like there's a shot where we're watching him prep for the Super Bowl and he throws a spiral right under camera. And it's like, oh my, like it was like an NFL quarterback moment where you're like, oh my God, these guys are so good.
I forgot that these guys are good.
These guys are like incredible.
For sure.
Also, the other thing that kind of got me is the way that he fights the eagle at the end. The way Ace Ventura fights the eagle, because he hits him
fucking
real
goes
hard.
To town on it. Yeah, it's great. It's a good bit. Just beat the shit out of a mascot because they're so protected.
Yeah.
You can just wail on them, and then once again, a well-placed sound effect.
Yeah, that just the way he punches him the second time is very funny.
He decks him. He straight
hard.
Decks him into the next world.
It's hard to fake that. Very hard. Okay, well, we've covered it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Maybe it got you to go back and watch it. Can't speak for the sequel, but there's good directing even in movies like Ace Ventura, I'm pleased to say.
Alrighty then.
Get the fuck out of here. I love your lazy punchlines. It's my favorite shit.
This has been a Small Beans endeavor. We're a bunch of pals who make podcasts, sketches, music, web series, and movies. The Beans always have new ideas percolating, so make sure to check us out at patreon.com/smallbeans. That's patreon.com/smallbeans, where you can browse all of our current and past content, see what we've got planned in the future, and learn how your support can help the small beans grow into huge, giant monster beans. If you enjoyed this content module, please like, rate, subscribe, or tell a friend about us. We love you!